I can feel the barrage through the soles of my boots before I hear it. The floorboards of the dugout quiver like a tuning fork, drumming a steady warning up my legs, and every few seconds a sharper jolt rattles my teeth. It has been like this for 7 days, thunder without sky, night without moon. A man-made tempest that never rolls away. Down here, the air tastes of old sweat and damp chalk, the lamps throwing jaundiced halos across sagging walls. But I swear, I can still smell the cordite drifting in from above. Faint, bitter, persistent. The buzzer set stands on a crate beside me. Canvas wrapped, scuffed. The little Morse key polished by nervous thumbs. I keep checking the line, tugging the wire where it snakes through a shell hole in the ceiling, half expecting to feel it part in my hand. Each time the needle flickers, I breathe easier, though only for a heartbeat. The barrage smothers even the faintest clicks, so I lean in until my ear almost touches the brass casing. Private Lawson jokes that I'm courting tinnitus, but his smile is thin, his pupils blown wide. No one really jokes after 7 days of this. We merely mouth the shapes. Our sergeant paces the narrow trench of the dugout, stepping over sprawled kit bags and the lifeless weight of greatcoats. He keeps his voice low, but the explosions above punch holes in every sentence. So we fill the gaps with imagination. I count off the hours in my head, 0, -3, -2, and wonder whether the guns will ever stop. Part of me fears the silence more than the noise. While the earth shakes, I can pretend the enemy trenches are nothing but churned mud and pulverized timber. When the guns fall quiet, that's when we'll find out who survived. Someone passes a tin mug of tea, lukewarm and sweetened with condensed milk. It tastes of metal. I sip anyway, letting the sugar steady my hands. In the cramped half-light, I see men writing stiff postcards to sweethearts, adjusting puttees, running fingers along gas masks. Routine motions to anchor us to the ordinary. Above our heads, chalk dust drifts down with every distant roar, coating shoulders like pale dandruff. We breathe it in and cough it out, white ghosts in candlelight. I try to picture home. A Sunday platform at King's Cross, rain on slick cobbles, mother waving until her arm ached. The memory blurs, shaken loose by a shell that lands so near the lamps blink out. Total black for a moment. Then a hiss as the hurricane lamp reignites. Somebody curses the Hun for bad timing. Somebody else crosses himself. My hands have found the Morse key again. Tap once, twice. Zeros and dashes echo in my skull. But no signal comes through. Either the line's gone, or the artillery has simply swallowed the return clicks. Mason breaks the tension by humming a music hall chorus, off-key yet dogged. And soon a few voices join, quiet, embarrassed, like children caught whispering in church. The tune falters when a fresh wave of shells booms overhead, louder, closer, rhythms speeding up until the dugout shakes outright. We hold our breaths together, a dozen pairs of lungs tightening as loose earth sprinkles down. When the rumble recedes, we exhale in ragged unison, laughing for no reason except that we're still here. 0-1 hour. I feel it in my chest before the sergeant checks his wristwatch. The pressure changes, the ground's constant growl edging lower, as though the batteries are saving the last rounds for something special. "Won't be long now," he mutters. He doesn't need to raise his voice. We hear him perfectly in the lull. That hush is worse than any detonation. The world seems to tilt toward an unseen cliff. Nearby, Corporal Evans rolls a cigarette with fingers that do not tremble, then passes it to the man beside him without taking a draw. I glance at the buzzer. Dead. The silence on the wire feels personal, accusatory. I imagine German signalers huddled across no man's land, tapping frantically at broken keys, just as foul-mouthed and frightened as we are. Impossible to hate a man you can picture so clearly. Yet hate is easier than pity. Pity will get you killed out there. Somewhere far above, a lone round whistles overhead. A straggler. It bursts with a flat crack that reverberates down the stairwell, stirring dust. Then nothing. A gap you could drive a cart through. Lawson's eyes meet mine. Were the guns supposed to stop already? The sergeant lifts a hand. Hold. In that suspended second, I hear everything. The faint drip of condensation at the tunnel mouth. The scrape of boots as men shift weight. The accelerated drum of my own pulse. Then the trench phone on the wall buzzes, one short, two long. The sergeant snatches the receiver, listens, and nods once. When he turns to us, his face is pale under the grime. "Stand by!" His voice cracks like a starter pistol. A ripple passes through the dugout as men push to their feet, snatching helmets, checking rifles, padding pockets for the final cigarette they might never smoke. I sling the buzzer set over my shoulder, feeling the weight dig into collarbone. The reel of cable clacks as I tighten the strap. My job is simple. Keep the line intact while we advance, lay fresh wire if the old snaps. Pray the men behind can hear my clicks. Simple, except that the world outside is about to wake with machine gun fire. "Fix bayonets!" The order is a knife through butter, slicing the stagnant air. Steel slides from scabbards, catching the lamplight in flashes. The metallic chorus raises the hairs on my neck, a sound both archaic and terrifying. We are stepping into the 20th century armed with medieval blades. Yet in this mud, the rifle's no good without one. Mason grips my shoulder, leans in close. "You'll keep us talking, eh, Sparks?" His breath smells of fear, masked by tobacco. I nod, words desert me. But he seems satisfied. His hand lingers a moment longer, a silent pact between men who might vanish from each other's sight within minutes. The sergeant climbs the ladder first, stopping just short of the top rung, silhouette poised against a faint glow filtering through the exit. A faint breeze swirls down, smelling of wet soil and cordite and something chemical I can't place. Gas, maybe. I fumble at my hip for the respirator pouch, fingers brushing canvas reassuringly. Behind me, the line shuffles forward. Boots scrape wood, canteens clink, hearts pound loud enough to share. I suck in one last breath of musty air, tasting fear, sweat, hope, an impossible cocktail, but I swallow it all the same. "Stand by!" the sergeant repeats, louder now, voice echoing up the shaft. Bayonets slide into place with a collective snap, like bones breaking in sync. My left hand grips the ladder, my right the telegraph reel. Somewhere above, dawn creeps across a sky we haven't seen in days. And for a heartbeat, the silence feels holy. I close my eyes, picture the first step into open air, the smear of dawn light over cratered ground, the whistle that will cut the hush to ribbons. Somewhere in front of us, the enemy waits, rifles sighted on the lip of their trench. Somewhere behind us, nothing but earth packed with our shells and prayers. The sergeant raises his whistle to his lips, but does not blow. Not yet. We hang on the brink, every muscle coiled. My pulse thrums louder than the lingering rumble of distant batteries. "Stand by!" he barks once more. And in the final fraction of calm before 0 hour, I feel the wire slipping through my fingers, ready to unspool into the chaos above. The whistle slashes the hush, and every sinew springs forward. I climb the last rung, boots hitting the firing step, and the sky greets me with a color I can't quite name. Dawn, watered down by days of smoke, a pale bruise across the rim of the world. I swing a leg over the parapet, rifle awkward under one arm, cable reel banging against my hip. The lip of our trench is slick with chalk paste. Boots skid, hands scrabble for balance, canvas packs drag us earthward again. But gravity loses this round. One by one we spill onto the parapet, rise and step into open air where there is no ceiling, only the shuddering boom of our own batteries somewhere behind and the distant waiting quiet ahead. The first stride feels weightless, almost graceful, as though the barrage has shaken the ground loose from its duty. My feet sink an inch into muck, then another. Suction grips my heels, releases with a wet pop. I glance left and right, gray greatcoats bobbing in neat rows, bayonets catching weak light, faces bleached with chalk dust and fear. Somewhere a whistle shrills again, pushing us onward like a shepherd's dog. I can hardly hear my own breath for the drumming in my head, but the cable unreels smoothly from the drum, a thin lifeline stretching back to the lip we've abandoned. Keep it feeding, keep the line alive. Ahead, no man's land yawns, an ocean frozen mid-storm. Craters brim with rainwater gone brown, timber stumps lean like broken teeth, coils of shredded wire glint like frost. Our artillery still hammers the opposite ridge, but it's rolling away now, creeping east in tidy lifts, and for a heartbeat, the space in front of us is almost quiet. Only the soft plop of boots in sludge, the faint gasp of men climbing the next rise. I count distance in paces. 20. 30. Each step stretches longer than the last, as though time itself is soldered to the mud. Mason is on my right, cap askew, lip curled in the ghost of a grin. "Easy, lads," he mutters. voice hoarse. Bosch'll be breakfasting on dust by now. The optimism feels as flimsy as cigarette paper, but it travels down the line in nods and tight smiles. We move in waves, careful not to bunch, training drilled into bone. But the field's torn face makes neat spacing a fantasy. I stumble over a length of rusted wire, half sunk in sludge, and nearly pitch forward. The reel jerks. I steady it, heart thudding. A sudden hush cascades over the field as our guns fall silent behind us. The hand of God lifts. Every ear tilts forward, straining for the enemy's reply. For 3, maybe 4 breaths, there is nothing but our boots and the distant hiss of shell smoke dissipating. I find myself thinking, madly, that the odds talkers were right. The barrage has done the job. Maybe the trenches opposite are nothing but saucers of broken clay, defenders pounded flat. Hope tastes metallic on the tongue and vanishes an instant later. Crack, 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 crack. The first German machine gun opens, sharp as an axe splitting wood. We drop as one organism, knees vanishing into slurry, helmets kissing mud. Bullets flick overhead with a noise like ripping canvas. Somewhere to my left, a man grunts, a surprised, annoyed sound, and folds sideways. The line stalls, headless for a beat. The sergeant's whistle cuts back, shrill, furious. Advance! Keep moving! I rise, half-crouched, spine screaming, and press on, cable paying out in desperate loops. Grass and soil spit upward in little fountains as rounds stitch the ground. The air changes texture, thin slivers of lead draining oxygen, filling the space with heat and panic. I taste cordite mixed with churned earth, feel beads of cold sweat track through the dust on my cheeks. A crater yawns before me. I slide into its lip, knee-deep in water, just long enough to yank the reel free of a tangle. Mason thumps in beside me, panting. Thought they forgot their manners. He coughs. Turns out they were just loading belts. We haul ourselves out, scrambling on all fours till the slope gives way to broken flat. Ahead, the German front wire looms, tangled masses of razor-thin steel. Much of it hangs shredded, but gaps are narrow, hesitant. Our pioneers swore they'd cut lanes, yet here the barriers twist like nests of vipers. 2 men throw down mats of wood and canvas, stomping to crush the worst of the barbs. Another is already tugging wire cutters, teeth gritted. The machine gun chatters again. One of them drops, cutters clattering from lifeless fingers, and the wire bounces back, triumphant. I keep moving diagonally, searching for a breach. The cable snags, I jerk it free, heart hammering as bullets crack inches above the reel's tin rim. One round grazes the edge, sparks off in a tiny puff. 2 near. The line must stay whole, I remind myself, or the voices behind will fade to nothing. Had Corporal Evans felt this same terror laying wire at loose? I remember his stories, the casual shrug. Just keep low and keep feeding, lad. Easy advice from a man already in the ground. Shells whistle overhead. Our own again. A fresh barrage walking forward to silence the guns that bite us. They burst in geysers of mud and smoke beyond the enemy wire. Thunder so close my eardrums flex. When the smoke clears, I see figures. Germans? Scuttling for dugout steps, silhouettes briefly bright against new flames. Some stumble. Others vanish into trenches I can't yet see. The machine gun stutters, falters, stops. A fresh cheer lifts from our line, raw, instinctive. We surge, boots slapping puddles, climbing a rise that smells of cordite and something sweeter, turned earth or blood. I can't tell. Another snag yanks me backward. I whirl. The cable has looped around a corpse's boot. The body is face down, half submerged, uniform unrecognizable beneath mud and crimson. I bend, fingers slipping on wet leather, and for an instant the man's head lolls towards me. Eyes open, surprised, still warm. I pull the loop free, "Sorry, mate," and sprint to catch up. The apology feels absurd, yet leaving him tangled would sever voices yet to speak. A shell lands short, much too short, behind us, flinging mud like shrapnel. The blast knocks me forward onto hands and knees. My ears ring, world narrowing to a dizzy tunnel lined with static. When sound returns, it is a chorus of overlapping screams, whistles, and staccato bursts. Mason's hand drags me up. His mouth moves. Keep going. Keep going. But only muffled vowels reach me. We stumble together past a tangle of stakes where the ground drops into a shallow depression, part crater, part drainage ditch. Men cluster here, breathless. The sergeant waves his revolver, urging the rest forward. Another 2 platoons spill over the lip behind us, adding to the chaotic scrum. I glance back. The trench we left is a ribbon of darkness, dotted with explosions. New figures climb its battered face, wavering silhouettes under drifting smoke. Reinforcements trying to follow our cable, trusting it like Ariadne's thread. For a second, I can almost see the pulses of Morse traveling back along the wire, little sparks of hope skittering through iron cores. Then a shell bursts square on the parapet, obliterating the vision in a bloom of orange and black. We crouch at the edge of the depression, panting. Mason fumbles a cigarette but drops it in mud before he can strike a match. He laughs, a raw, broken sound, and wipes his eyes with the sleeve. I follow his gaze to the slope ahead. The German wire, splintered, sagging, stands only 50 yards on, and beyond it the enemy trench shows jagged lips of timber. Between us and them, open ground, mud slick, bodies already scattered, smoke rolling and torn banners. The machine gun is silent for now, or perhaps destroyed. But new barrels will rise. They always do. The sergeant kneels beside me, hand on my shoulder. Line good? I nod, though my throat is a knot. He raps knuckles on my helmet, not unkindly. Right then, Sparks. We push again. Keep that buzzing. He looks to the men huddled around, raises his whistle, but hesitates, eyes scanning the dark pylons of wire. I see the doubt flicker, quickly masked by duty. The whistle meets his lips. I brace, fingers poised on the reel, ears filling with the hush before another storm. The whistle shrieks like metal torn in two, and the ditch heaves as we scramble out, knees churning water, boots slapping wet earth. At once, the air stiffens, an invisible net twisting tighter with every step. 50 yards to the enemy wire, the sergeant said, but distance has grown fangs, every yard now guarded by bullets you hear only after they pass, little gnats of death whining at your ears. I hug the cable reel to my ribs and run as if I still believe running matters. Ahead, a second wave reaches open ground, just as the first bursts of machine gun fire return, louder, closer, stitched in relentless patterns. The song they sing is pure geometry, flat lines that scythe across the field. Men drop mid-stride, limbs pinwheeling, greatcoats flaring like torn sails before bodies smack the mud. Some bounce once, twice, then lie still. Others curl around their wounds and rock as though in prayer. The rows behind waver, contract, surge again, driven by whistles and curses and simple momentum. I try to count the guns, one on the left spurting short, disciplined bursts, another further right raking arcs, but numbers dissolve under panic. The ground around my boots erupts in tiny fountains. Mud spatters my face, warmth spreading where a glob sticks to skin. Mason lunges ahead, bayonet lifted uselessly high, mouth open in a roar I cannot hear. Then a fresh burst rips through his section. 3 men fold as if struck by a single unseen hand. Mason stumbles, rights himself, staggers on. I follow his back, half blinded by spray. Somewhere behind, our field guns answer, hurling shells meant to smother those emplacements. The blasts land short, then long, never quite on target. Each explosion punches a hole in the smoke, reveals slanted figures scrambling along the German parapet to swing reserve belts into place. They have depth. We have momentum and an awful timetable. The reel catches. I glance back. The line has snagged around a timber stake jutting from a crater. With every yard I run, the loop tightens, stretches, threatens to snap. Hold! I shout. No one hears. I drop to my knees, hands clawing at wire slick with mud. Machine gun rounds kick up around the crater's rim. One finds the stake itself, splinters wood, but the cable stays whole for now. I free it, yank once, and sprint to catch the wave. When I crest a low ridge, the scene ahead freezes me. A tableau scraped straight from nightmares whispered in billets. The leading ranks have reached a belt of wire not fully cut. They press against it like cattle against a fence, rifles pushing uselessly through gaps too small for shoulders, bayonets sawing without leverage. Every moment they spend tangled is another volley from the guns. Men topple backwards off the strands, landing on comrades who shove forward, blind with urgency. A lieutenant climbs the coil, tries to stamp it flat. Tracers slice his torso in neat diagonal lines, tipping him sideways like a felled spruce. The sergeant's whistle, somehow still functioning, blasts 2 rapid notes. Left. Find the gap left. We veer, bunching dangerously. I taste dirt, cordite, copper, fear. My ankle sinks past boot top. Suction nearly wrenches the foot off. I tug free, feel the lace snap. One boot loose now, socks drinking muck. Still, I run. A shell crashes barely 20 yards ahead, gouging a fresh pit. The concussion lifts me off my feet, slams me on my back, ears ringing. For one dazzled moment, the world dims to sepia, the crackle of gunfire replaced by cotton wool hush. Shapes move without sound, men bending over me, mouths open in alarm. Someone grabs my collar, drags me by inches. Noise rushes back, a roaring tide. I blink, grit away. The sergeant looms, shouting something about the line. I lift the reel. Miraculously, it still spins. We slide into the new crater, half full of stinking water. Steam coils off shards of shell casing embedded in the bank. 5, 10 of us huddle there, the first thin slice of living amid heaps of still bodies sprawled along the approach. The sergeant checks his watch, curses. "We're late to the barrage lift. Push through or we're meat." He points to a sagging portion of wire 40 yards on, churned by earlier shells. "That's the gate. Get there, fix the line as you go." Mason is here, face streaked black, eyes too wide. He shoulders past, slops water everywhere. A private named Hook clutches his forearm, blood soaking the sleeve where a round nicked artery. He ties it off with field dressing, teeth clenched so hard they squeak. None of us speak more than a phrase at a time. Words waste breath. We climb the far lip of the crater. The sergeant first, then Mason, then me with the reel. Gunfire finds us immediately, but the angle is steep. Rounds hiss overhead, chip dirt from the rim. We sprint downhill toward the ruined wire. Dead men carpet the approach, making footing treacherous. A boot sole jerks my toe. A stiff arm trips Mason, so he sprawls, reels sideways, recovers. I mutter a litany. "Sorry, mate, sorry," every time my heel lands on something that once drew breath. At the wire gap, the scene is pandemonium. Pioneers with cutters fight to widen it. Blades shining, shoulders bulging, lips peeled back. Bodies are threaded through twisted strands like beads. Some ours, some theirs. All color equalized by mud. A machine gun sighted further back sweeps occasional bursts that slip between the torn stands of smoke. Each time men cringe closer to earth, prayers and curses mingling. The cable suddenly jerks from my grip. Someone has tramped on it. I whirl. Hook, face ash white, staggers with one arm dangling, but his boot pinions the line. I shove him free. He nods faintly and lurches on. I feel again along the taut cord, still intact. But how long? Every stray shard, every fallen bayonet threatens to saw it in two. Mason reaches the gap first, crawls through on belly and elbows, rifle slung, bayonet dragging furrows. The reel clatters over wire, sparks where metal kisses metal. I follow, prying strands apart, thankful for gloves as barbs claw leather. By the time I stand inside the enemy field, the world has changed. The ground dips suddenly, and we can see the lip of their fire step, sandbags ruptured, duck boards askew. Vapor from our shells still rolls across it, but silhouettes man rifles between gusts. Their shouts are guttural, frantic. Ours answer in kind, bayonets lowered, men springing forward. The sergeant barrels past, revolver snapping shots. "Through the line! Take that trench!" he roars, voice brittle. 30 yards now. A German lobs a grenade. It arcs low, lands short, fizzing. We dive sideways, dull thud, shower of clods. I come up spitting filth, reel digging into ribs. Another reel team darts ahead, wires slung over shoulders like bracelets. They leap a shallow depression. Both vanish mid-stride as the earth beneath erupts, a mortar round smacking home. Their cable whips into the sky, unspooling hopelessly, then falls in tangled skeins over burning mud. I swallow bile, force legs to move. Nothing else to do. A cluster of our rifles speak together, crisp volley. 3 German heads jerk back behind parapet. We close on the approach saps, narrow alleys leading down into their line. The last yards are murder, grenades, rifle fire, a pistol barking from a sandbagged loophole. Mason reaches the lip. At the same instant, a German officer rises, pistol in hand. They stare an eye blink. Mason drives his bayonet forward. The officer fires. Both motions finish. Both men slump, twined. The pistol clatters, half hidden by smoke. I scramble past them. Can't stop. Drop into the trench. Floor is sludge, knee-deep. Boards shattered. A German signaller crouches at a field phone, mouth opening in shock as I land. He fumbles for a sidearm. I don't think, just swing my rifle butt. Wood meets bone with sickening crack, and he folds. My lungs burn, chest heaving with each gulp of fetid air. Down the traverse, grenades bang, men scream. They sound close enough to touch. But here, for a heartbeat, there is room to breathe. The sergeant clambers in, eyes blazing. Find their comms dug out. Cut everything. He points deeper into the maze. I nod, reel tucked under arm, cable glistening like a wet snake. Mason is not with us. I shove the thought aside. No time now. The trench wall trembles as another of our shells lands farther back, showering clumps of clay into the communication trench. I thread forward, boots squelching, turning left at the first traverse, then right, memory of training maps guiding feet. The German line is a crooked throat. One wrong turn, and I'm dead. I pause where the trench broadens. A wooden sign, letters stenciled in black, hangs askew over a dugout stair. An orderly lies across the steps, half buried, telephone receiver still in hand. Perfect. I shoulder past, descending into darkness that smells of creosote and fear. Lamps sway, glass cracked. Lines of field cable run along the ceiling, bundled neatly, labels in German script. I draw my wire cutters, their cold weight startling calm into my fingers. Up above, the battle still roars, but down here, the sound is filtered, distant, like thunder heard through pillows. My heartbeat is louder than the guns for the first time all day. I lift the cutters, angle them around the fattest cable, pause, breathe, squeeze. Copper and gut snap together. Sparks leap, tiny fireworks. Another cable, snap, another. The German lifeline dies a few arteries at a time. When I climb back up, smoke has thickened, yet through breaks I glimpse our lads pushing the traverse, bayonets flashing, taking prisoners in pockets. The line has broken. At least here. At least for now. I tapped the brass key on my reel. 3 shorts, 1 long. Code for objective entered. No crackle replies, but I signal again, trusting the pulses to travel down the cable we sacrificed so much to protect. A sudden boom rocks the parapet. Counter barrage beginning. Time to move. The sergeant waves me onward, deeper into the trench system, toward an unseen rendezvous where our partial victory might glue to something larger. The reel spins again, cable slipping through fingers, sore and blackened. I step over a fallen figure, almost trip, then recognize the torn sleeve of Mason's coat where it drapes the parapet top. I want to stop, to look, to know, but a new whistle screams down the line, summoning every able body to push before the counterfire seals us in. My throat tight, I press on, wire unreeling like the story of this day, long, tangled, costly. Ahead, the trench bends left, vanishing into smoke the color of dusk. I follow it, boots splashing, ears ringing, carrying the only voice I have left. copper threads whispering dots and dashes back to a world that must believe we are still alive. The trench twists like an animal in pain, every corner hacked open by shell burst, every traverse clotted with bodies and splintered duckboards. I slog onward, reel underarm, copper line feeding through my fist in a steady hiss, the one clean sound left in this place. A few yards behind, the sergeant shepherds the survivors of our platoon, barely a dozen now, while new figures from another battalion spill down fire steps to reinforce the breach. Their accents are strange, Midlands maybe, but fear levels all dialects. They shout for grenades, for stretcher bearers, for someone who knows the plan. I only half hear them. My pulse pounds too loud, and the trench itself seems to breathe. Exhaling smoke, inhaling screams. A bend opens onto a wider bay where two Germans lie sprawled across a Maxim, its receiver cracked by shrapnel. Steam curls from the shattered jacket. Hot oil smells like a kitchen-turned nightmare. One of ours kicks the corpses aside, tries the trigger, nothing but a dull click. He curses, rips the canvas belt free, stuffs it into a sandbag as souvenir. I step over the gun, careful not to snag the cable, and feel a shiver of guilt at how automatic the motion is. Once, I thought stepping over the dead would mark the loss of my humanity. Now, it is simply navigation. The dugout doorway ahead gapes black, a jaw without teeth. Chalk dust drifts from the lintel each time distant artillery thuds, and within the gloom a lamp flickers, stubborn. This must be the central exchange the sergeant hinted at. Nerve bundle for this sector. I duck inside. The air is cooler, thick with pipe smoke and stale sweat, as if the men who manned the desks only just fled. Telephone switchboards line the wall, cords torn loose where operators panicked. Sheets of code groups litter a table. I snatch one, tuck it into my satchel on reflex. Intelligence will want proof the raid reached this far. Then I set to work. German wire is heavier than ours, 4 core, tarred. I pause, listening. Feet scuffle overhead, but no voices draw near. One snip, two, the trunk line parts with a sigh, sparks spitting like angry bees. I yank free another coil, loop it round a support post for good measure. Each severed strand feels like a tendon cut in the enemy's wrist. Let their orders wither in transit. Let their counter barrage fall blind. Outside, the guns already lag, hunting for targets they can't see. Our chance grows in the gap between their question and our answer. When I emerge, smoke has dulled daylight to sickly twilight. Gas shells must be landing somewhere upwind. A sweet acridity rides the breeze. Men tug masks down, eyes crazed behind mica lenses. I do likewise, voice muffled now to a hollow rasp. The sergeant waves me over. Command wants a live line to the farm ruins past the second trench. We're to push a patrol out there. Spot for artillery the moment Jerry wakes up. His tone makes plain the absurdity. Still, orders are the only pillar left in this sinking world. He claps my shoulder. "Run that wire, Sparks, and mind your skin. We'll follow." Farm ruins. My map flashes behind my eyes, a rectangle of black on penciled contours. Once a stone barn, now roofless, halfway up the slope beyond the support trench. 200 yards of open ground, maybe 3, raked by any gun that lifts its barrel. I swallow, nod. The copper reel suddenly feels twice its weight. The sergeant selects 4 men with grenades and Lewis gun, tells them to screen me. Their faces behind respirators are insect blank, but I sense the fear radiating like heat. We climb the fire step, peer through a shell-bitten loophole. The support trench lies 30 yards ahead, shallow, sagging, pocked by new craters. Beyond it, the slope to the farm rises in slow, treeless misery. Shell lands far left. Geysering mud, fragments patter the parapet. The brief flash silhouettes German figures along their reserve line, unsure whether to counterattack or dig deeper. Our screen takes the moment. The whistle shrills. We vault the sandbags. Mud sucks at my loose boot, threatens to strip it. I yank free, lurch forward. Bullets snap, high and fast. They've spotted movement. The Lewis gun team drops to one knee, drum rattling as it spits a harsh rebuttal. I sprint, cable unreeling behind in frantic zigzags. Each stride is guesswork. Ground could give way to a shell hole, or a dead man hidden beneath mire could turn my ankle. Breath rasps inside the mask, hot and wet. The lip of the support trench appears, half collapsed. I vault, land hard on boards that crack like ice. A German crouches in the corner, rifle jammed. He flinches at my arrival, eyes fox-wide. My bayonet stays sheathed, no time. I slam the rifle butt into his jaw. He folds without a sound, body striking water with a slap. The Lewis gunner tumbles in beside me, curses, fires a burst down a sap where figures dart. Then the others spill over, forming a hasty perimeter. I scramble up the far face, hauling cable, lungs aflame. The slope to the farm beckons, open, bleak, strewn with shattered plows and wagon wheels, like bones of some monstrous carcass. Halfway up, bullets chew furrows in the soil around my boots. A machine gun has found its range. I dive into a shallow scrape behind a toppled limber, chest heaving. The line reels out, snagging on a broken axle. I free it with gloved fingers that tremble uncontrollably. The Lewis gun barks behind me, short, stuttering volleys, trying to blind the gun crew. I risk a glance. Smoke drifts, wind-torn, offering momentary cover. No better chance. I explode from the hollow, legs pumping through gluey muck, reel clacking like a frantic clock. 20 strides, 30. Time warps to rubber bands, stretching between heartbeats. At last the farm wall looms, knee-high rubble of limestone blocks, doorway gaping into darkness. I hurl myself over the threshold, skid on broken tiles, crash against a beam. Rainwater leaks through a hole where roof once was. It drips onto my helmet in slow, mocking taps. But I made it. I wrench off the mask, sucking sweet, acrid air, and lash the cable around a charred roof joist. Then I unpack the portable buzzer set, hands fumbling with clips. Contact pins bite copper, spark. I tap the key, 2 longs, 1 short. Pre-arranged code for station established. For a moment, nothing returns. My stomach knots. Has the line snapped? Then, faint, almost drowned by distant guns, the needle flutters. A reply. Alive. Outside, the Lewis team fights up the slope, firing from the hip, driving back German skirmishers who probe the support trench lip. I clip the set shut and crawl to a shattered window slit. Through ripples of smoke, I see figures dragging something bulky, maybe a machine gun, toward a knoll that will give them deadly enfilade on our breach. I tap a fire correction on the key, coordinates rough but urgent, praying the battery has someone still listening. The needle flicks acknowledgement. Seconds stretch. Then, the whine of approaching shells, our shells, low and fast. They land exactly on the knoll. Blossoms of orange that fling bodies skyward in ragged arcs. Satisfaction clenches my fist. Then, shame unfurls it. Those men were doing their job as I am mine. War turns all craft into murder. A cry from the doorway. One of the escort collapses against the lintel, clutching his thigh where blood pumps through shredded cloth. I drag him inside, slap a field dressing, cinch the tourniquet. He trembles, mutters for water. I give him the last of my canteen, a mouthful the temperature of soup, and promise stretcher bearers soon. A promise strung on wires and hope. The sergeant's voice crackles faintly through the buzzer. A string of Morse too hurried, dots running into dashes, but the meaning is clear. Counterattack forming left flank. Hold until reinforcements reach the breach. Hold with what? We have a half-ruined barn, a wounded lad, a Lewis gun nearly out of drums, and a signaller whose weapon is more wire than rifle. Yet the order steadies me. If the line holds, so do we. I dash to the doorway, wave the Lewis team inward. They scurry across open ground, bringing 2 fresh drums and a German belt of rifle clips. Bullets pock the walls as they dive through. The machine gun on the reserve line is awake again. The farm's north wall shivers under impact. Limestone dust drifts like flour. We pile rubble into firing rests, poke rifle barrels through gaps. The gunner sets up on a fallen beam, muttering praise for any god who still answers prayers for field of fire. Silence falls for a heartbeat, eerie after so much violence. Smoke clears in rag strips, revealing Germans massing at the foot of the slope, bayonets fixed, helmets bobbing like beetles along a hedge. They count perhaps 30, maybe more, officers waving pistols. A clear objective: retake the barn, cut our new line, plug the rupture before it spreads. My pulse hammers ear side. I thumb fresh rounds into my magazine, glance at the cables snaking across floorboards, then back to the slope. The enemy begins to move, slow at first, then a trot, bayonets glittering. The Lewis gun chuffs, sweeping their front ranks. Men tumble, others leap over, momentum unchecked. Our rifles crack in erratic chorus, each shot a personal plea. Still they come. A grenade arcs through the roofless gap, lands in straw not 5 feet away. I snatch it, hurl blindly out the window. It bursts mid-air, showering sparks harmlessly downslope. Luck or providence? Choose your myth. Closer now, 20 yards. I see faces, grimy, eyes wide. One throws his grenade too soon. It bursts short, smoke rolling harmlessly. Another slips in mud, hollers as bayonet finds own comrade's leg. Chaos always rides shotgun with courage. Yet a handful reach the low wall, vault over. Inside the barn it turns knife close. Rifles jab, bayonets stab, men grunt like oxen. The Lewis gun's muzzle swings too slow for such tight quarters. Its crew drop it, draw pistols. Cordite and sweat blur vision. A German lunges at me, rifle level. I parry with barrel, shove, pull trigger. Misfire, chamber fouled with grit. He swings buttstock, it cracks against my arm. Pain flares white. I jam the muzzle under his chin, fire again. This time it spits, and he collapses backwards as if strings were cut. Sudden whistles, our whistles, from the slope below. I risk a glance. Shadows pour over the lip of the support trench. Reinforcements at last, bayonets high, rushing uphill like surf. The Germans outside falter, turn, break. Those inside see the tide reversing. Two fling rifles down, hands raised, eyes darting for exits that no longer exist. The sergeant's men sweep in behind reinforcements, clearing stragglers with quick, brutal efficiency. I sag against a beam, chest heaving. The wounded lad groans. His bandage seeps red, but he is alive. The Lewis gunner laughs, shaky, drumming fingers on the empty cooling jacket. I pick up the buzzer key, thumb trembling, and tap the code for objective secure. The needle answers at once, crisp despite static. A ripple of relief fills me, wire intact, message delivered. Outside, artillery deepens to a bone-shaking growl, their heavies, not ours, groping for the farm. The sergeant clambers over rubble, eyes hard. Nice work, Sparks, but Jerry's ranging us. If we stay, we'll be paced. He points east toward another fold of ground dotted with shell smoke and tiny running figures. New orders. Shift the OP to that sunken lane. You and me up front. Everyone else cover. The lane lies 300 yards beyond, across ground already burning. Fire and smoke indeed. My fingers close around the reel's crank. I brace to lift. The sergeant adjusts his helmet, lifts his whistle. On my mark, he says. We move like wind, or we don't move again. I slap the mask back over my face, tasting stale rubber and the metallic tang of fear. The reel clacks once as I release the brake. Outside, the rumble swells, rolling toward us like an iron tide. The sergeant raises the whistle to his lips, poised between breaths, and the world holds its heartbeat, waiting for the run through fire. The whistle cuts loose, shrill, desperate, and we burst from the barn like embers flung on wind. Instant heat slaps my face. A shell has found the courtyard's far wall, flames licking the stone as though tasting it before a meal. I hurdle a fallen beam, reel clattering, and land ankle-deep in a puddle boiling with red sparks. The sergeant is already ahead, silhouette jerking through smoke, legs pumping in furious rhythm. I fix on the battered crown of his helmet and charge after, lungs sucking fumes that taste of tar and rotting hay. The slope behind the farm dips into shallow undulations, carved by earlier barrages. Each hollow pools with mist, green tinged in places, gas shells still exhaling their poison. I hold my breath through the first, stride bounding the lip, feel the soil shiver as shrapnel whistles past. The second hollow is deeper. I jump, misjudge, plunge thigh-deep in mud so hot it steams. The reel yanks forward, nearly jerks free. I claw for purchase, boots finding stone, haul myself out with a grunt that scratches my throat raw. All around, the air clots with fragments, metal, dirt, pieces of timber, things better unnamed. They drift, spin, hammer. One shard zings off the reel's rim, leaving a bright tooth mark. Another nickels the top of my rifle barrel, raising a puff of lead smoke. The sound is everywhere and nowhere, impact after impact merging into a single roaring silence in my skull. My ears ring, but the Morse key inside my head keeps tapping. Keep moving, keep the line, keep breathing. The ground levels. Ahead, the sunken lane appears, a ragged gash half hidden by smoke. A stand of blasted willows crowns its far bank, trunks scorched to charcoal. Between me and that refuge is 200 yards of open field lit by small fires, patches of burning straw, detonated flare drums, the wreckage of someone's ration cart spewing tins that hiss as they heat. The lane seems close enough to touch, yet infinitely far, as though each stride will shrink the distance by only half. The sergeant signals, arm sweeping right. A pair of riflemen peel off, sprinting ahead to where a mound of chalk offers partial cover. The Lewis gun team follows, lugging the weapon like a wounded beast. Their boots splash through a rivulet of water streaked rainbow with fuel. A shell screams overhead, deep, throaty, traveling fast. The explosion flings a fountain of earth skyward, dead in front of them. When the smoke recoils, both gunners are gone. Only the gun lies on its side, half buried, barrel bent like soft lead. I swallow the cry curdling in my chest and veer left, cable dragging through ashes. The wind, fickle all morning, shifts again, blowing the remains of a gas cloud across our path. A soft yellow veil curls low, like mist off a swamp. I fumble the respirator to my face, straps tugging hair, mask sealing with a damp kiss. My breath rattles loud inside the rubber dome, monster sounds in a monster landscape. Eyes sting behind the lenses, vision tunneling. Ahead the sergeant gestures, forward, forward, his muffled shout flattened by the mask. Our small column dwindles with every crater. Hook is gone, left bleeding back at the barn. Mason. No, don't think of Mason. Focus on the living. The corporal from the Midlands ducks beside me now, eyes wild above fogging eyepieces. "Nearly there, lad," he bellows, voice gale muffled. I nod, though the lane still looks a lifetime off. A shell lands behind us, so close the shockwave kicks my knees forward. I lurch, legs jelly, reel slipping. Before I hit earth, the corporal's arm hooks my pack and drags me upright. We stagger a few paces, lean on each other like drunkards at closing time, then stumble on. The cable reels out, humming through numb fingers. Halfway, 100 yards maybe. The enemy has spotted our dash. A machine gun on the reserve line clacks alive, flat and fast. Bullets rake the field from right to left, stitching sparks off stones. We drop as one, bellies splashing into sludge that steams with chemical heat. Rounds hiss inches overhead, snapping twigs of invisible hedges. I press my helmet deeper, feel the rim cut skin above the brow. The reel lies under my ribs, warm. The bullets pass. Slow. Pause. The sergeant crawls up, taps my shoulder. He points to a crater slightly forward, lip high, edge blackened, smoke drifting from its core. We slither toward it, bodies sliding like seals on an oil slick. Inside is ruin. A mangled field gun, maybe French, flung here weeks ago. Its carriage forms a crude shield. 3 of us wedge behind the twisted axle. 2 more dive beside a charred log farther left. The machine gun resumes, chewing the rim, chomping off chunks of chalk that pepper us like hail. The sergeant raises fingers, 1, 2, then slashes them across the air. On cue, our farthest rifleman pops up, fires 2 rounds, ducks. The gun shifts, barking at his flash. We use the lull to sprint. My boots pound every step, liquid fire in calves, cramping from fear. I leap a shallow rut, feel soil puffed beneath as a round smacks right where my foot had been. Momentum hurls me forward, overbalance, fall. I roll, pack crushing shoulder, reel spinning wildly. Mud cakes lenses, world turns smeared brown. I wipe with sleeve, leave streaks but gain shapes. The lane yawns 10 yards away now, closer than any dream. Its near bank has collapsed, forming a slanted slide of clay into darkness. Figures dot within the ditch, British uniforms, thank God. They wave, shouting. The sergeant rises, blows 1 sharp note. We sprint the final stretch, machine gun flaring again. Bullets whine, but the angle's too steep. Clay explodes near my heels, spraying clods that drum armor plate rhythms on my helmet. I jump for the bank, slide down on my side, cable unspooling in shining arcs. The lane is a world apart. Sunken 4-5 feet below field level. Walls reinforced by rotted timber. It reeks of horse and standing water. A knot of Royal Engineers crouches against the east wall, sandbags at their feet. Their officer, 2nd Lieutenant, no more than 20, grins a wolfish greeting. About bloody time, signaler? I nod, mask dangling around my neck now. He points to a stub of trench board hammered into the bank. Line goes there, batteries listening. I kneel, hands suddenly steady. Clip, spark, key. 2 longs, 1 short. Station re-established. The reply crackles sharp. Relief buckles my shoulders, and I exhale a breath that tastes of mud and cordite. The corporal slumps beside me, chest heaving. He peels off his mask, spits clots of earth. "Fancy jog, that," he mutters, voice trembling more than his grin admits. The engineers set to stacking sandbags into firing niches. The sergeant confers with their officer, maps spread on a crate, fingers tracing arrows toward lines I can't see. Overhead, shells continue to ferry death in both directions, some ours, some theirs, each burst sending tremors through the lane walls. A mortar round lands close. Dirt rains onto helmets in a grisly drizzle. Someone laughs at the absurdity, then coughs hard. I glance back toward the barn. Smoke blankets the slope, rising thicker where enemy heavies pound the ruins we abandoned. Flames lick the sky, glowing even through gray haze. For a moment, I strain to see shapes, any movement that might be mason, or hook on a stretcher line, or the Lewis crew miraculously whole. Nothing but fire and shadow. I clench my fists, nails biting grime-soft skin, and force eyes forward. The living need my attention more than the ghosts. A runner arrives breathless, message clenched like contraband. The sergeant reads, mouth flattening. He calls to me. Command wants ranging on those machine guns back of Delville Wood. Use this lane as OP until dark. Delville Wood, thick, tangled, German-held, name whispered like a prophecy of pain. I swallow. The buzzing key will steer steel onto that thicket, and every correction I tap will shred trees, men, anything caught beneath. The sun, though still morning, is a smudge, barely brighter than the smoke. Heat builds in the lane as fires upslope pump waves of tortured air. My shirt clings to skin, sweat tracing salt rivers down spine. The reel sits beside me, cable disappearing over lip toward carnage. I flex the cramped fingers that fed it, feel them stiffen, then unlock. Not over yet, far from it. The corporal nudges my arm, points to the bank. You see that? I peer where he gestures. A helmet tip spiked edges over the ridge, then another. Germans crawling to grenade range on the far side, shadows against shimmering heat. Our rifles come up, but the sergeant arrests them with a hand. Wait till they show. His voice is calm, knife sharp. My pulse is not. It hammers so loud I fear it will drown the Morse clicks. A shell shrieks closer. The Germans flatten instinctively. The explosion lifts a column of dust right on their position. Fragments whistle over our heads like angry insects. Smoke clears. 2 figures lie sprawled, unmoving. A third crawls backwards, leaving a dark smear. The sergeant nods once, almost regretful. Guns will do the work, lads. Save your rounds. We settle into the lane, each man claiming a stretch of parapet. I coil slack cable, brace the reel, tap our first ranging order, grid reference, shell type, number of rounds. Seconds later, the thunder answers. I guide corrections, each burst walking nearer those hidden guns in the wood. In my mind's eye, I see branches shatter, dugouts collapse, men scramble, then vanish. The key ticks under fingertips that ache but do not soften. Between salvos, the world shrinks to simple sensations. Stink of cordite, metallic taste of fear. Rough weave of putty against wet sock where the lace snapped. Distant thrum of artillery like a heartbeat so huge it replaces the skies. An eternity of minutes passes. The sergeant paces behind, checking watches, adjusting men along a lane. Engineers dig deeper, stacking more sandbags, their spades ringing stone. Suddenly, the cable twitches. The buzzer needle spasms, then drops dead. My breath freezes. I tap. Silence. Again, nothing. Somewhere along those 300 yards, the line has sheared. Maybe a shell ripped it clean, maybe a boot sliced it. Either way, our voice just went mute. Across the lip, smoke thins enough for me to glimpse the torn field, fires ebbing but embers still winking like hungry eyes. The sergeant meets my gaze. No words needed. Fix it. I sling the reel, grab the repair tin, and scramble up the clay bank into air that feels hot as forge breath. The moment my head clears the edge, bullets flicker again, random, probing, but persuasive. I drop flat, inching along, palm finding the copper where it surfaces from lane wall. I trace it back until fingers meet frayed ends, still warm. Good sign, damage fresh, close. I unclip pliers, strip insulation, twist wires with trembling skill, wrap with tape ripped by teeth. The field sings nearby, explosions, rifle pops, screams carried on wind, but I focus on metal meeting metal, circuits reknitting like torn skin. Connection made, I tap the key clipped to belt. The needle flicks, stammers, holds. Contact restored. I exhale, a laugh escaping despite everything. Then a mortar drops behind me, dull thump, sudden gust, pain punches calf, heat splashes. I roll instinctively into a crater's lip, hands over helmet, ears ringing anew. Shrapnel hissed by, the leg burns but flexes. Flesh wound, I think. I hope. Blood warms the sock, sticky. Down in the lane, men wave, shouting. I crawl, slide, tumble over the edge, landing in mud that drinks the blood from my boot like thirsty soil. The corporal drags me to the bank, checks the cut. Clean graze, he decides, binding fast. I grit teeth, nod, thanks. The line crackles, battery waiting. I tap in fresh corrections through fingers slick with my own blood. The shells answer, deeper, steadier. Out in the field, flames climb higher, each blossom painting the smoke shocking white before fading ember orange. The sergeant crouches beside me, hand on shoulder, eyes flinty but proud. Hell of a run, Sparks, he says softly. I manage a grin, shaky but real. Yet even as relief brushes my nerves, a new thunder rises farther east. Enemy counter-barrage, shifting, hunting, lungs of the earth drawing a sharp breath. The sergeant tilts his helmet back, listening to that dread chorus. They'll try to drive us out before dark, he mutters. We'll need deeper cover, shell holes, culverts, anything. I know what's next. The run is over. Now comes the burrow. The desperate search for pockets of earth that might survive the night. I tighten the tourniquet, loop the cable tidy, and brace for the crawl that waits beyond the lane's scant shelter, toward craters not yet claimed, toward shadows where the lost might still be found. The sky rumbles, lowering like a lid. Somewhere a whistle blows, thin as spider thread, and the men around me begin to move again. Mud hugs my boots like a grieving widow, each step prying at the soles as though trying to keep me from leaving. We quit the sunken lane in fading light, the sergeant leading a staggered file, bound for a belt of fresh blasted craters that pock the slope beyond. Find yourself a hole that'll outlast a 6-inch, he'd warned, voice dulled by exhaustion. Dig in, keep the line alive, wait for night. Night, once a relief, now feels like another weapon the Somme will raise against us. But the order stands, so I carry the reel on my hip and limp toward a landscape rearranged by iron. The counter barrage has slowed to an ugly rhythm. 2 guns firing in lazy alternation, big brutes by the depth of each concussion. They're searching, not yet sure where we huddle, but each shell that lands writes a fresh line of punctuation into the clay. Ellipses, commas, full stops where men vanish mid-stride. We thread between smoking funnels, crouched low, heads tucking instinctively at every distant boom. My calf throbs where shrapnel kissed it. Each pulse feels like a hand squeezing the wound just to remind me it's there. Halfway up the slope, a shell finds us. A blinding pulse of light, a fist of hot wind. Earth geysers upward, hissing like a giant kettle. I'm lifted, weightless, then flung sideways into yielding muck. Ears ring, world white. When sound bleeds back, it arrives in pieces. A thin whimper, a man's ragged breathing, the dull patter of falling clods. I blink, the sky swims, a bruise of evening clouds smeared with fire glow and a rising half-moon. The reel is gone. Panic spikes, but my hand lands on the cable, half buried. I follow it to where the drum lies upended, rim bent. Miraculously, the line itself still stretches unbroken into the dimness. I haul the drum upright, grit grating in its gears, and drag it toward a crater lip for shelter. Beside me, someone groans. The corporal, the Midlands lad, lies on his side, helmet askew, fingers clawing at silence. I roll him gently. His eyes flood recognition, then pain. A fragment has ripped his thigh wide open. Blood bubbles through cloth with every breath. I bind him in the shell's afterglow, hands slick, fabric useless after the first soak. He tries to joke, "Second souvenir today!" But the words crack, drift away. I press my canteen to his lips. Half the water sloshes down my wrist. The rest he swallows, blinking thanks. The dressing won't hold long. We need stretcher bearers, and there are none. I tug at the web strap, slinging the reel cross-body, then grip his tunic collar. "Shell holes 3 yards, I mutter. "We crawl. Shout if you black out." He nods, face gray, and together we drag ourselves toward a crater that yawns like a moon crater filled with darkness. The hole swallows us, clay slopes sliding under elbows, muck sucking at knees. At the bottom, water laps ankle deep, warm from the shell's heat. Steam drifts in thin curls. I lower him onto a dry rim of slag, wedge a broken plank beneath his leg for elevation. He shivers, teeth clicking. I tuck a spare ground sheet over him, pat his shoulder. "You keep cursing, that's an order." A weak thumb up answers. Only then do I breathe, long and shaky, and glance around. The crater is wide enough for 10 men. 3 already occupy it, 2 British, 1 German, scattered like chess pieces upended. The Brit nearest me is curled fetal, hands clasping his belly where blood worms through fingers. He's conscious, eyes reflecting a fear so bright it seems to backlight him. I crawl over, lift his helmet, see a boy's face. Could be 17. No rank badges left on his torn sleeve. He tries to speak, Bubbles of red spill instead. I grip his wrist, feel pulse skitter. Nothing to do but hold on. I whisper nonsense. Railway timetables, London street names, the smell of fresh bread outside King's Cross, until his stare relaxes and drifts somewhere I can't follow. His pulse slides away moments later, soft as silt. The German lies on his back, chest rising shallow, tunic buttons blown off. He watches me without hatred, curiosity mixed with dread. A scrap of shrapnel has buried itself above his collarbone. Each breath nudges it, bright blood seeping. I press gauze, tie a field dressing. He grimaces, but doesn't fight. Our fingers brush. His skin is cold. "Name?" I ask. He whispers something, sounds like Johann. I nod, tap my chest. "Alf." We sit in uneasy truce, two men outside armies, for a heartbeat. But the war won't let go. Another shell crashes southeast. The shock wave hisses over the crater lip, showering us with grit. I curl around the reel automatically. The line, the only reason we risked the open, is still intact. I tap the buzzer clipped to my belt. A quick test. The needle flutters, alive. Headquarters must be wondering why the line went silent for 5 minutes. I key in a status, thumb stiff. OP shifted, crater, grid. My wrist compass quivers. I read bearings by moonlight, praying the digits aren't guesswork. The acknowledgement clicks back almost at once, brisk as a nod. They still hear us. That seems impossible, a miracle wired through hell. I settle against the crater wall, listening to the counter-barrage pace the field like some blind beast. Between crashes, I hear softer noises, distant cries, mud sucking at boots, the metallic squeal of stretcher poles. Somewhere upslope, a flare bangs open, casting the torn landscape in theater light, white against velvet dark. Shapes freeze, exposed. One silhouette limps, supporting another, both outlined so clear. I expect the guns to cut them down. But the flare fizzles. Darkness folds over them again. The corporal's breathing rattles wetly, but he stays conscious. I crawl back, check the bandage, bleeding slowed, though every spasm threatens new flow. He catches my wrist. "You seen Mason?" 3 words, heavy as anvils. I swallow, shake head once. The truth carries a taste like iron filings. He nods as if he already knew, then closes his eyes. The moon rides higher, a thin coin, but its light reveals flecks of copper in my dried blood. Shimmer of wire where the reel rests. Everything seems too sharp, as if the air itself has edges. Johann speaks German, soft as lullaby. I pick one word. Mutter. Mother. He clutches something, a rosary perhaps, then tucks it back into tunic. His gaze flicks to the line, realizes what I am, what the cable means. For a moment I fear he'll slash it, but he just stares, resigned. The war has rules, even here. Let the wounded be. I offer him my last morphine syringe. He hesitates, then accepts, injecting clumsily into his arm. His thanks is a sigh. Time distorts in the crater. Minutes stretch, punctured by the rhythm of shell fire and the occasional rifle pop along unseen trenches. My eyes droop, but every near crash jolts them open. I drift through half-dreams. Steam trains rolling into stations where no one waits. Mason lighting a cigarette that sparks like tracer rounds. Mother stirring tea that turns crimson. Each vision ends with the buzzer clicking, dragging me back. At length the barrage slackens, intervals widening. The sky clears, a scatter of stars trembling above smoke. Somewhere a nightjar calls, absurdly gentle. I dare a glance over the rim. Fields of shallow moon-silvered puddles stretch toward a black line of trees, Delville Wood, and beyond that, darkness I pretend is home. Movement catches my eye, two figures crawling crater to crater, stretcher folded between them, bearers. I wave my torch, one short flash, too long, our agreed signal. Their answer blinks from 50 yards, but they veer toward nearer cries first. Casualty triage in open air. I slide back, inform the corporal, help on the field. He exhales relief that almost sounds laugh-crooked. Johann watches every motion. I pantomime that medics will come. He nods faintly, though we both know prisoners rank low on any rescue list. Still, hope needs little soil to sprout. Another flare blossoms, green this time, over enemy lines. Their artillery wakes again, fresh coordinates. A shell screams, bursts far right, another left, triangulating. The sergeant had warned they'd patterned the craters. We need to move before guesswork becomes certainty. But the corporal cannot walk, Johann even less. The choice slices. I tap on the buzzer, request stretcher support, to grid plus flare color, urgent, multiple wounded. Waiting for the reply, I catch my reflection dimly in the puddle. Face painted mud and dried blood, eyes wild, jaw slack. I strip sleeve, dip into water, scrub until my skin stings. Doesn't help. The gaze is still that of a stranger who's seen too much in a single sunless day. "Alf," the corporal whispers, "if they don't come, don't stay." I shake my head. Words tangle in my throat. Duty says the line must move if the advance does, but leaving these men feels like cutting my own shadow. "We'll get out," I say. Not promise, statement carved in stone. The shells step closer. Earth trembles with each impact. I lash the reel to a steel picket half buried in a slope. Give slack so vibration won't snap it. Then I crawl among scattered boards, stacking them into a crude revetment to shield the wounded from blast wave. Johann helps. Face pale, but hand steady. Cooperation between enemies. Mud makes strange alliances. The stretcher bearers finally reached the rim, ghostly under moon and flare. Two Tommies, one muttering a prayer every other breath. They slide in, assess the corporal first. "He goes," one decides. They splint, lift, struggle up the incline. He grips my forearm as they bear him off. "Tell him I walked," he rasps, mouth twisting to smile. I nod till he disappears into night. Only Johann remains with me, and the silent British lad whose pulse no longer counts time. I fold the boy's arms, close his eyes, place his helmet on chest. Johann murmurs something, maybe a prayer my own vicar never taught, and I bow my head. Shells continue to search, but for a moment we grant the dead a gentleness the living rarely earn out here. A sharp click jolts me. The buzzer. New orders. Patrol from 8th Brigade pushing past our line at first light. We must mark safe lanes with cable and flares. First light. hours away, yet none at all. The message ends with a query, state strength. I stare at 3 bodies, 1 enemy, 1 friend, 1 beyond such labels, and type back, 1 signaler operational, line intact. It feels absurdly small against the ledger of ruin. Wind shifts. The stench of rot rolls over the rim, mingling with cordite, burned cord, gas sweetness. I gag, pull scarf across nose. Johann coughs, winces. I rummage, find a half tablet of aspirin, press it into his palm. My enemy accepts a feeble mercy. Perhaps that changes nothing. Perhaps it changes everything. I don't know anymore. The moon slides behind ragged cloud, night leaning darker. I retightened the wounded German's bandage, then settled beside the reel, back to crater wall. In the hush between shells, I hear distant moans, whispered names, the creak of buried timber. Somewhere a lark begins an insane midnight song, as if dawn were minutes off. I tap my helmet, matching rhythm, and let the sound anchor me. Exhaustion rolls in like tide. I fight it by reviewing the cable's route. Lane to barn, to trench, to jumping off sap, every twist pictured in my mind's eye, a glowing thread through night. If it snaps, I will know where to mend. That thought steadies me more than prayer. Beside me, Johann drifts into morphine's pale sea, breathing soft. I keep watch, fingers resting on the key, waiting for the next flash that demands reply. Lightning flickers low on the eastern horizon. No storm, just artillery. Yet it silhouettes the battlefield long enough to show wreckage everywhere. Craters within craters, men as dark knots on a tortured quilt. Somewhere in that gloom, Mason lies, perhaps under starshine, perhaps face down in water. Loss presses so hard my ribs ache. I close my eyes, whisper his name to the night, and promise to carry it till morning. The barrage slackens again, a reluctant sigh. I know the pattern now. Lull, correction, storm. The next storm will mark dawn, 0 plus endless hours. I flex cramped hands, adjust the reel on my lap, and lean into the crater wall, poised between wakefulness and dream, between duty and despair, ready to follow the copper thread wherever it drags me, when the sky bruises toward gray. Dawn steals in like a thief, pale light prizing open my eyelids long before the guns decree morning. The crater's air has cooled, carrying a scent of damp chalk and something sweeter, almost floral, drifting from smashed sandbags that once held sawdust. For a moment I imagine the smell is summer lavender blown across fields far from here. Then a shell thumps beyond Delville Wood, and the fantasy cracks. Johann stirs beside me, groaning as the morphine ebbs. I check his bandage, blood-soaked but clotting, then glance toward the slope. The stretcher bearers haven't returned. Perhaps they never will. My orders, though, have arrived at the buzzer. Mark 2 safe lanes through the tangle ahead before the 8th pushes past. One man operational, line intact. No mention of wounded allies or enemies, just the copper thread and the time it must be in place. Duty never factors margin for humanity. I shake stiffness from my limbs, roll the reel to my hip and test the key. Clicks answer, faint but alive. I tell Johann I'll be back or I won't, then hand him my final water ration. He nods, eyes clouded with both gratitude and resignation. The British lad lies still, face oddly peaceful in dawn's wan glow. I tuck his identity disc tight under his tunic flap, someone will need it later, and clamber toward the rim, boots tractionless on slick clay. The battlefield greets me in bruised colors, mauve smoke, rust-brown pools, black silhouettes of shattered trees against a horizon pulsing with gun flash. Sticky mud sucks at every stride, heel to ankle in a single greedy gulp. I curse softly, leaning my weight forward, cable unspooling behind like a stubborn serpent. Beyond the crater belt, shredded coils of wire gleam with dew, each barb fat with what might be rain, or something darker. Halfway to the objective trench, I pause, listening. The barrage has slackened to sporadic bark, our heavies shifting target eastward. Yet the German lines mutter with intermittent machine gun coughs, testing the dawn. Their bullets slice the air well above head level, probing for silhouettes. I crouch instinctively, shoulders tensing beneath the reel's strap, and pick a route through a line of shell holes that link like malformed footprints. In each pit, puddled water reflects dim sky, the surface trembling at every distant report. Whistles rise behind me, platoon sergeants rousing men, voices muffled by distance and gas masks. That means the patrol is forming. My safe lanes must be flagged before they break cover. I press on, teeth clenched, knees protesting each step. A length of wire catches my shin, barbs tearing putty. I stumble, skid on greasy turf, then lurch upright. Mud coats my gloves so thick the finger joints refuse to bend. Near the target trench, an old communications sap runs jagged under collapsed revetments. I duck into its shadow, grateful for a moment's cover. Here, the cable can run hidden, spared from random shell bursts. I hammer a steel peg into the clay, lash the line taut, then flick open the flare box. The phosphorus sticks rattles inside like bones, 2 red for left lane, 2 white for right, simple enough. I jam them into my belt, wipe spade handle sweat from my brow, and climb the broken parapet toward the open. The dawn brightens by slow degrees, a dirty copper disc clawing its way above smog. Its light reveals movement on the far ridge, gray figures hauling a Maxim into fresh position. I measure the angle, too far to worry, yet my lane will cross a field in plain sight, no choice. I tap a fire request through the buzzer, grid squares, estimated range, then start across the mudflat, knees bent, cable slipping like silk through gloved grip. Halfway, the field ahead erupts in sudden orange blooms, our shells landing with gratifying accuracy. The gun crew vanish in fountains of earth. I exhale triumph. Too soon. Another gun opens from the flank, barrel slewed low, its first burst walking unexpectedly wide. The second burst finds its stride. I feel rather than hear the bullet pass. A hot breath at temple height, a hiss so intimate it seems whispered. Reflex drops me to my belly, reel pinning ribs. Mud splashes across lenses, blotting the world to brown and red smears. I press chin into muck, heart hammering. The gun chatters again higher, a quick correction, then stops, either canny or distracted. I wipe visor, rise to a crouch. That's when the third burst arrives, ragged but close. A sudden slap brushes my scalp like a schoolmaster's ruler swiped too fast. Time splinters. Sound vanishes, sight narrows, breath catches. I taste iron. I drop, roll into a shallow scrape hardly deep enough for a terrier. Fingers find helmet rim. There's a neat groove gouged along the steel, still warm. Beneath it, just before my right ear, a line of fire sears the skin. Blood beads, trickles, mingles with sweat. A graze, millimeters from fracture or oblivion. The realization lands heavier than the bullet itself. Survival has narrowed to the thickness of a tin hat. I clamp a dressing band round my head, hands shaking. The wound is shallow, sting more than pain, but the proximity hollows me. I lie still, swallowing fear, until the pulse of artillery resumes a more distant tempo. An eerie, sickening silence hangs between shots. No cries, no whistles, as though the field itself holds breath. Yet the task remains. I inch forward, dragging cable through sludge. Every yard won is a personal argument with fate, convincing myself it hasn't yet closed its ledger on me. At the trench lip, I thrust the second peg, not the wire, release the slack. Then I plant the red flare, tamp mud around its base, and swivel east for the return leg. My head rings. Each heartbeat flicks droplets across my vision. Halfway, the field ahead erupts in sudden orange blooms, our shells landing with gratifying accuracy. The gun crew vanish in fountains of earth. I exhale triumph. Too soon. Another gun opens from the flank, barrel slewed low, its first burst walking unexpectedly wide. The second burst finds its stride. I feel rather than hear the bullet pass. A hot breath at temple height, a hiss so intimate it seems whispered. Reflex drops me to my belly, reel pinning ribs. Mud splashes across lenses, blotting the world to brown and red smears. I press chin into muck, heart hammering. The gun chatters again higher, a quick correction, then stops, either canny or distracted. I wipe visor, rise to a crouch. That's when the third burst arrives, ragged but close. A sudden slap brushes my scalp like a schoolmaster's ruler swiped too fast. Time splinters. Sound vanishes, sight narrows, breath catches. I taste iron. I drop, roll into a shallow scrape hardly deep enough for a terrier. Fingers find helmet rim. There's a neat groove gouged along the steel, still warm. Beneath it, just before my right ear, a line of fire sears the skin. Blood beads, trickles, mingles with sweat. A graze, millimeters from fracture or oblivion. The realization lands heavier than the bullet itself. Survival has narrowed to the thickness of a tin hat. I clamp a dressing band round my head, hands shaking. The wound is shallow, sting more than pain, but the proximity hollows me. I lie still, swallowing fear, until the pulse of artillery resumes a more distant tempo. An eerie, sickening silence hangs between shots. No cries, no whistles, as though the field itself holds breath. Yet the task remains. I inch forward, dragging cable through sludge. Every yard won is a personal argument with fate, convincing myself it hasn't yet closed its ledger on me. At the trench lip, I thrust the second peg, knot the wire, release the slack. Then I plant the red flare, tamp mud around its base, and swivel east for the return leg. My head rings. Each heartbeat flicks droplets across my vision. Behind them, stretcher bearers hustle, boards rattling, red crosses dulled by grime. They vanish into distance, swallowed by gray. For a lull, only the low rumble of artillery and the slap of mud remain. Steady, hypnotic, almost peaceful. I let my head rest against shattered trench timber, eyes fluttering. The smallest movement tugs at the scalp wound, a reminder. The universe has my measure, pencil poised. Sleep tries to claim me. I fight by reviewing the cable's path again, knot by knot. The copper thread, our pulse. Without it, those men ahead wander blind. My body protests, but duty tightens tendons like marionette strings. I stand, waver, then brace. New fire erupts far left, a German battery waking fully. Whistles call our men to ground. I key coordinates, hands slick. Shells screech overhead from our side in near instant answer, but one lands short, shattering ground between the lanes. Mud volcanoes skywards, smoke billows, and my line twitches slack. The copper has snagged somewhere. I curse, reel in a foot, feel resistance. Mudslide or fragment, I can't tell. If the break sits in open field that Maxim sweeps, I'll need to crawl back under its watch. A tremor of fatigue travels my spine, but stubbornness roots deeper. I loop spare cable over my shoulder, clamp pliers between teeth, and scramble up the sap wall. Fresh rifle snaps greet me, joined by the faint whimper of wounded somewhere unseen. I swallow dread, lower into a crouch, and set off along the copper path, head pounding beneath the bandage, consciousness focused to a single imperative: mend the fragile voice before the silence grows fatal. Wind carries a chill now, stirring smoke into ragged banners. Somewhere up the slope a whistle shrills, a command couched in fear and steel, and men rush forward into the unseen. I tighten my grip on the reel, Feel blood pulse beneath the dressing, and step once more into the open, senses flaring like nerve ends exposed, aware that the next bullet may not be polite enough merely to graze. A shell-scoured ridge feels wider than a continent when you're crawling on your belly, hunting a break, no thicker than a matchstick. The copper guides me. Tug, slack, tug, until a frayed end glints in a puddle the color of claret. I wedge my body behind a splintered stake, bullets nipping the mud inches above my back, and twist new wire with fingers that no longer feel skin through crusted gloves. 2 turns, 3. A spark as metal meets metal. Then the buzzer at my hip flutters, alive again. I tap one curt code, line restored, before slithering rearward, spine prickling with every heartbeat that stubbornly continues. By the time I collapse inside the sap, light has begun to fail. The sky bruises violet, gun flashes staining clouds from below like sinners' lanterns. My scalp throbs beneath the bandage, each pulse a tiny hammer. Yet for the first time since dawn, the Maxim opposite has gone quiet, either silenced by our gunners or content with today's harvest. A hush settles, unnerving, incomplete. You strain to hear birds, wind, anything civilized, and instead there are only voices, not shouting, calling, pleading. All across the torn flat come thin threads of sound. Stretcher, over here. Water, mother, finish me, mate, for God's sake. They rise, overlap, drift off, start anew, an unscored choir under the evening star. The sergeant squats beside me, eyes reflecting flare light. Line's good, well done. Relief's stalled, too many gaps, but we can still pull lads in before Jerry wakes proper. He jerks his thumb at 3 cocky shapes assembling stretchers beside the lane. You're on rescue, Sparks. You know where the living holes are. I swallow weariness, nod. My legs wobble as I stand, but duty braces them straighter than bone. We strip gear down to essentials. Pistol, wire cutters, tourniquet, morphine. A single bayonet each. The stretchers are canvas slung on ash poles, silent until they meet weight. Our plan is brutal simplicity. Follow my cable to the crater belt. Branch left, bring in whomever still answers. Darkness deepens quick. Moonlight warps every stump into a crouched sniper. We kneel at the lip, waiting for the next flare. When green fire blossoms overhead, we slip out, timing movement with its fade, so the enemy sees nothing but afterimages. Mud has cooled, sucking warmth from hands and knees as we crawl. Copper slides beneath my glove, our breadcrumb trail to and from the abyss. A wounded voice guides us first, hoarse, repetitive, childlike. We find the owner tangled in concertina wire, torso wedged between loops, blood beads on each barb. His breath whistles through a chest wound I can't see. 2 men lift wire while I snip strands, my cutters whispering metallic apologies. When he's free, we swaddle him in ground sheet, secure morphine into a trembling arm, and lash him onto canvas. The first bearers start back, poles creaking. His thank you is a tear he's too dry to shed. We push farther. Distant batteries trade angry coughs. Each salvo silhouettes our world, then plunges it into ink. Somewhere left a very light, pops and hangs, bleaching faces ghastly. In that flash I glimpse a body I recognize. Mason's coat, unmistakable where the sleeve is torn. He lies, half submerged in a crater, arm draped as though reaching for a dream. My mind snaps a photograph I never ask for. Then the flare dies, and darkness mercifully erases detail. I tell myself I'll return when the line is secure, when there's strength to carry the dead. Lies taste like copper, but go down easier in war. At my crater, the German, Johann, still breathes, though weaker. He startles when our boots skid on clay, relief smoothing his brow when he recognizes the signaler he'd entrusted with water. We lift him gently. He gasps, but does not cry out. The bearers shift poles, one muttering psalm words under breath. As they go, I tuck Johann's rosary between his palms, enemy or not, it seems right, and tap his wrist twice. He squeezes back, gratitude drawn in pain. Now only shadows remain, but the moans haven't lessened. A new voice calls, soft, ragged, somewhere beyond the safe lane. The sergeant glances at me, unspoken question. I nod. One more. We edge toward the sound, skirts of our coats dragging slime. Twice machine gun tracers sweep the horizon, red stitches on black cloth, but they're probing elsewhere. The cry grows clearer. Here, can't move legs. We find him wedged against an upturned limber, both thighs pinned by the axle. He's maybe 19, freckles grimed with soot. Sweat beads despite chill. The sergeant and I brace shoulders against the wheel. On three we heave. The wood shifts with a groan, just enough for the lad to drag free, screaming through clenched teeth. Blood pumps. I clamp dressing, twist until flow eases and his scream fades to sobs. No stretcher left, so we form a human travois, hands interlocked under his back, feet dragging. Each step drives needles into my calf wound, but the lad's whisper, "Don't let me go dark," spurs me fiercer than any order. Halfway back, artillery flares anew, our heavies dropping short. One shell blossoms in the dead ground beside us, showering sparks. Concussion hurls us flat. I feel ribs crack under the boy's weight. Ears ring blank, but through roaring silence I sense the copper line under my cheek, still humming faint as heartbeat. When hearing returns, it arrives with the boy's whimper, the sergeant's oath, and the far-off ripple of German voices rallying. We haul upright, resume the drag, lungs flaring hot. The lane's parapet looms, black on black. Hands reach, lift the boy, pass him along a human chain, toward the aid dugout where lamps glow sick yellow. I lean against the wall, chest laboring, scalp wound reopened, trickle worn down neck. The sergeant claps my shoulder. "That's all we can snatch tonight. Get to the buzzer. Tell them 32 wounded inbound, 10 stretcher cases, 2 German prisoners. See if they can spare extra bearers before first light." The dugout hums like a hive in mourning. Men on stretchers, orderlies cutting boots off swollen feet, a chaplain murmuring over an unconscious shape. Cries rise and fall like surf. I hunker by the field set, fingers stiff, and tap the report. Replies lag. Lines elsewhere must be worse. At last, acknowledged. More bearers dispatched. Hold Posen. I slump, muscles gone pudding. But the sound of my own click steadies me, proof the world still listens. Outside, night deepens. Flares grow sporadic. Guns trade only occasional shells, clearing throats for tomorrow. In the lane, men fortify parapets with torn sandbags, bayonets glinting under moon. Somewhere, water heats in an ammo tin brazier, promise of tea that will taste of cordite and salvation. I rinse mud from my face, hands cupped at a trickle leaking from busted canteen, then retie my dressing. The cut throbs, yet the bullet's near miss sharpens rather than dulls my senses. I feel alive in a way that shames me. Voices drift from the aid post, a lad delirious calling for Mom in a loop. Another begs someone to find his left boot, though his foot is gone. The chaplain hums a hymn older than empire, low and steady. Their sounds mingle with wind through wire, distant artillery, as if the battlefield itself sings a lullaby both tender and terrible. I step back onto the fire step, gaze over parapet. Stars flicker between smoke veils, indifferent. Across no man's land, a lantern blinks twice. Enemy stretcher party, perhaps. Daring retrieval under truce, no officer signed. I feel no hate, only a hollow ache. A moment later, our own lamp answers, thin beam wagging permission. Figures move, fragile, against the void, united in the simple labor of mercy. Behind me, the sergeant whispers orders, sentry rotations, ammo counts, code calls. He grips my elbow as I pass. Get an hour shut-eye, Sparks. Wire's good. Guns will need you when dawn shows its ugly mug. Sleep seems impossible amid groans and coughing. Yet the promise of any unconsciousness tugs hard. I find a niche of revetment, coil the buzzer cord round wrist like a comfort ribbon, and sit with back to timber that creaks like shipwood. Lids droop, dream edges blur. Somewhere far, a lark begins its insane nighttime trill, echoing yesterday's and maybe tomorrow's. I wonder if it's the same bird, or if they hand off the song like we hand off trenches. My last waking thought is of Mason's reaching arm, and Johann's tired smile, and the copper line that binds us all, living, dying, enemy, friend, into one vast, quivering sentence awaiting its final period. I doze. Minutes, hours, later, a hand shakes my shoulder. Darkness still holds, but the air vibrates differently, quiet, electric. The sentry's voice is a breath. Movement out front, maybe a raiding party. I rise, stiffness screaming, and thumb the bayonet lug until steel locks home. The trench falls hush beneath a breathless moon. Somewhere beyond wire, footsteps crunch sludge, measured, cautious. I crouch behind a firing embrasure, fingers resting on the Morse key, ready to spill alarms down the line. Heart drums a fast code. Be ready. Be ready. Be ready. The crunching stops, then starts again, slower, as though whoever prowls beyond our wire tests each patch of sludge. A flare pistol rests near my boot. One tug would scratch the sky with magnesium, but the sergeant's hiss stays my hand. Show them light too soon, and we light ourselves as targets. Instead, he tilts his head. Listen. The footsteps pause, then shuffle left, brushing what might be broken pickets. Another set of steps answers further off. 2, maybe 3 of them, feeling for gaps. A soft clink, metal on wire. One shape resolves in moon glimmer, crouched low, helmet a darker blot. German patrol, sent to probe or grab prisoners. The shape lifts cutters, snips. Tin snaps echo along the lattice, faint, but our sentry's breath catches. The sergeant signals me, crawl down the sap, fetch the listening post. A nod, and I'm moving, knees sliding over duckboards slippery as eels. Halfway, I pass the aid dugout. Inside, low lamplight dapples faces, gaunt with morphine dreams. The boy we freed from the limber breathes shallow, lips gray, cleric murmuring psalms against his ear. Beyond, the corridor narrows to the listening post, just a sandbagged niche with 2 men, rifle muzzles poked through loopholes into the void. Their names blink to memory, Griffiths and Noor. I whisper the news. Griffiths grins, teeth fox bright. Time to return the visit then. Noor checks his grenade bins, eyes calm as slate. Orders. We crawl out, circle round, and snatch the prowlers before they melt back. Griffiths takes point, pistol ready. Noor shoulders a sack of new wire to tangle their retreat. I bring the cable reel, lifeline if we vanish into black. The sergeant squeezes each of our wrists, then melts into shadow, preparing surprise from the parapet. We slip through a sap break barely wider than shoulders, stomachs kissing mud. The night smells of cordite, wet straw, carbolic. Frost crystals have begun to rim shell pools. They glitter like false stars. Griffiths leads us along the ditch of our own destroyed wire, pausing at every groan of timber in the wind. 50 yards out, we flatten, enemy voices murmuring ahead. I press ear to earth. Vibrations hum, low, steady. Footfalls of men who think themselves unseen. Griffiths gestures, fan left. Noor peels off, unspooling wire, staking it knee-high through churned mud. I belly right, hauling a slack of copper, laying it parallel so we can whisper home if things turn sour. Ahead, the shapes kneel, backs to us, still cutting. There are 3, maybe 4, moonlight ghosts pale. One wears a trench coat too large, collar up. Another shifts, revealing a bag of bombs at hip. Griffiths inches closer, raises his Webley, waits for perfect hush between gunfire echoes. His finger tightens, then fate intervenes. Noor's wire roll clanks on a buried helmet, The nearest German snaps alert, snarls guttural. Shots crack, needles of flame, bullets hiss close enough to warm cheek skin. We spring up shouting. My rifle fires almost by reflex. 2 figures drop, thudding into slime. A third runs straight into Nor's fresh tangle, trips hard, curses. Griffiths vaults, pistol butt hammering the man silent. But the fourth bolts past, sprinting for no man's emptiness. If he escapes, their guns will know our weakness. I slam reel to ground, chase. Mud sucks boots, lungs burn, scalp wound pulses fire. The man zigzags toward a low crater. 20 yards, 15. I throw myself, tackle his legs. We tumble into icy water. He thrashes, knife glinting. I seize his wrist. Blade skids along my greatcoat sleeve. Carven cloth, grazing forearm. Pain sharp and hot. I wrench harder. Something pops. Blade falls. We flop apart, coughing. Moon shows him, hard young face, eyes bright with equal fear and fury. For a second we just breathe, steam mingling. My bayonet gleams, but killing him now would be noise and time. Instead, I jam pistol to his chest and hiss in broken German, quiet or stirped. He freezes. I haul him by collar, frog march back toward Griffiths. Nor binds the other prisoner's hands, blood trickling from his own cheek where a bullet grazed. Wire bristles ankle high all around like thorns. Any chase will find misery first. We hurry along my copper back to the sap, prisoners stumbling between us. Halfway, rocket flares glare green over German lines. Alarm signal. Machine guns spit random lines, but angle too far left. Still, shells may follow. We shove prisoners into the trench just as the first mortar chuffs. It lands short, geysering dirt over us. Another whoops overhead, deeper pitch. The sergeant waves us down trench. Back positions, we're pulling to reserve line before they paste this lane. No time to debate. We shepherd wounded prisoners, litter a salvage along duckboards that creak under sudden traffic. Copper must go too. I loop it over shoulder, yanking stakes free as I limp after the column. Each tug sends lightning across scalp, where bullet groove smarts. Behind, explosions step closer, hungry boots crunching the earth we vacate. Sentries toss last sandbags, grenades prime to cover retreat. At the sap mouth I pause, kneel, cut the cable clean, no current for enemy to trace, and reel frantically as I run. Reserve trench lies 200 yards rear, half collapsed, but deeper. We spill down firing bay, men and stretchers and captured Germans funneling into snaggle-toothed dugouts. A padre guides prisoners to a corner, binds wounds without asking side. The boy from the limber survives, breath steadier. Johann too arrives on stretcher, borne by lads whose arms tremble but eyes burn proud. He clasps my wrist as they pass. In dim dugout lamp his lips shape Danke. The sergeant rounds us, head count by candle. 2 killed in the crawl, 3 wounded, 1 line intact, 2 prisoners taken. He scribbles report, hands me the message pad. Send that up. I connect buzzer leads to the new trench splice, tap the story in dots and dashes. Headquarters replies brisk approval, orders us to hold until dawn relief. Typical, risk spent, prize a handful of words. Once signaling done, fatigue slams like blackout curtain. I slump on fire step, back to wall. Rifle leans beside, mud flaking. Fingers probe forearm gash, deep but not vicious. A medic salts it with iodine that bites hotter than bullet. He wraps clean linen, nods, "You'll keep." Outside, enemy guns finally answer their flare, plastering the forward lane we left, white fountains in dark. We rest in strobing silence, every blast lifting hair, though distance safe. Cigarettes glow, traded for rum ration dregs. Noor sits opposite, cheek bandaged, hands shaking now the fight's gone. He offers smoke. I raise trembling match. We inhale, tar grounding nerves. Griffith jokes about our wrestling bout in Crater. Laughter sounds foreign yet delicious. Rumor seeps, word that divisional staff might rotate us after daylight, 7 days forward earned. Talk drifts to baths rumored in Albert, to loaves unsliced, to sheets smelling of soap. Nobody mentions dead left behind. The mind folds those away for later. False dawn bruises sky. Guns dwindle to sullen coughs. Both sides spent. An orderly collects message satchel, heads rearward. The sergeant passes along final task. Relay a short run of wire from our new post to Brigade HQ once sun's full. Easy compared to last night's crawl. He squeezes my shoulder. "You did well, Sparkplug. Hole in the head suits you." I grin, fingers touching bandage like new rank stripe. With light, the world re-emerges. Timber busted but holding, smoke tattering, wire frost silver. Beyond parapet, no man's looks almost peaceful. Shell holes mirroring dawn pink. Almost. Shapes still lie where flares caught them, testimony in stillness. Stretchers move again. Day shift for death's clerks. We hand prisoners to escort. The young one I tackled meets my gaze, fear replaced by exhaustion. I sense his relief at capture, war suspended for him at least. He raises bound hands slightly. A salute? I nod, unsure what it means. At last, over the lip of Plug Street, a relief company heads our way. Fresh khaki marred only by forced bravado. We brief them, passing notes on dead ground, machine gun nests, wire gaps flagged red and white. One asks if fighting was bad. Griffith snorts, "Only if you dislike mud and murder." They laugh too loud, but nerves need foolishness. We shoulder kit, leave reels stowed for next signaler, and file rearward through comms trench that reeks of chloride and damp chalk. Each step away from firing line lifts a weight, yet presses guilt. My mind replays Mason's outstretched arm, the boys' fading thanks, Johann's whispered prayer. I taste copper again. Not from wound, but from memories. At a junction, a brass plaque reads, "First Dragon Alley," joke of an old battalion long gone. We turn down, boots sloshing, sun now clear above haze. Birds, real, surviving birds, chirp, tentative among shattered trees. Behind, artillery renews its growl, but we are walking away for once. The sergeant calls halt near a supply dump smelling of stale bully beef. 10 minutes, he says. I sink onto a box, close eyes, and in that darkness see wire glinting under moon, a bullet trace kissing my helmet, hands hauling stretcher through hell, but dawn wind cools my face. And when I open eyes, the horizon glows amber. I breathe deep. Smell of smoke, yes, but also damp earth, reclaimed for an instant from gore. We are not yet out, never out, but we have crawled, rescued, returned. The line holds. I touch the bandage above my ear, feel pulse steady inside, and ready myself for whatever daylight adds to the ledger. Morning stretches itself over the Somme with a weariness that matches our own, pale sunlight bleeding through a low gauze of cordite haze. It is not a triumphant dawn, more a reluctant surrender of darkness. The drizzle that started before first light has settled into a mist so fine it hangs motionless, beading on every strand of wire, turning the battlefield into a landscape painted with cold pearls. Each droplet trembles under the faint vibration of distant batteries, a reminder that even beauty here is borrowed and brief. We sit in a shallow reserve traverse, backs against sandbags patched with sacking, steam drifting from our greatcoats as damp rises off them. Someone brews tea in a dented mess tin balanced on a chunk of smoldering timber. Last night's shelter plank pressed into service, one layer deeper in the hierarchy of survival. The liquid is the color of river mud and tastes of smoke, but the sugar we scrounged from a medical pannier makes it sweeter than anything I can remember. I cradle the mug in both hands, letting the heat gnaw at chilled knuckles until pain becomes comfort. Across the trench, the sergeant reads the morning roster, pencil ticking the living, pausing over the missing. Each silence is a gravestone without stone. Lawson, Hook, Mason. He does not linger, just clears his throat and moves to the next name, but I can see the tremor in his grip. At the end, he folds the paper with unnecessary precision and tucks it into his notebook, as if neat corners could keep the dead from fraying. Roll call finished, we trade small acts of repair. The corporal, who lost half a boot, wraps sacking round the sole and ties it with field telephone wire. Noor, bruised and bandaged, threads new striker springs into Mills bombs. Griffiths scratches initials into the stock of a captured Mauser, a souvenir he may never fire. I sit on an ammo crate and clean my buzzer set with a scrap of flannel, coaxing dried mud from the key's hinge, wiping blood, mine, someone else's, from the brass terminals until they shine like dull gold. The copper reel lies beside me, line coiled orderly now, each loop a promise that the voice will carry again when called. Occasional shells from the German rear whistle overhead, weak and erratic, sound more of habit than strategy, but they still make us duck, flinching at every distant thump. Somewhere left a sniper pops a few desultory rounds. The reports echo off crater walls, sharp, lonely. The reply from our lines is perfunctory, a single shot, meant less to hit than to remind we're here, watching too. The war feels like an argument that neither side remembers how to end. Each sentence a little quieter than the last, but no closer to truce. An orderly in a leather jerkin passes through with a satchel of green envelopes. For letters home, blank paper inside. Get your words in while the post carts can still roll. He drops one into my lap and moves on. I stare at the envelope, thumb smoothing the creases, wondering if there is anything left to say that Mother could bear to read. At King's Cross, I promised her I'd write cheerful notes, leave the gruesome parts in shadows. But how do you paint yesterday's night crawl into something soft? I consider the lie. We moved positions under starlight, spirits high, more mud than danger. My pen hovers, nib catching on wet fiber, and I hear Mason laughing at the idiocy of my censorship. I slide the paper back. empty. Perhaps tomorrow I will find gentler truth. Today, my mind is a crater, and the ink would drown. Mid-morning, burial parties assemble at the trench head. 2 lads from a fresh reinforcement company are handed picks almost as tall as they are. Their sergeant murmurs instructions in a low monotone as though reading a sermon he's recited too often. The parties clamber over the parapet toward the ruin we left hours ago. For a moment, their uniforms look impossibly clean against the churned landscape. Blank pages about to be written in mud and grief. I watch them go until my scalp wound throbs, dragging attention back to flesh. A medical orderly changes the dressing, peeling cloth gently, dabbing iodine. The graze has crusted dark, hair matted where blood dried, but bone is intact, fortune measured in millimeters. He smiles that neutral, non-committal smile medics cultivate, ties the new bandage snug. "You'll keep, signaler." Words echo the night's verdict, yet hearing them in daylight feels different, more verdict than reassurance. The calm phrase noonward. A runner arrives from Brigade HQ, boots caked to knees, eyes ringed in sleepless gray. He hands the sergeant a folded message, salutes, moves on like a wind-up toy set to collapse out of sight. The sergeant reads, whistle clenched between teeth, though he's not blown it since dawn. His gaze lifts, meets mine, holds a second longer than custom. "Orders," he says quietly. We re-establish the forward OP before dusk. Corps is pushing a fresh assault tonight. They want the line talking before the moon's up. Groans ripple along the traverse, not of complaint, but of joints anticipating the cold bite of no man's land again. I coil the cable tighter, feeling its weight in my palm. Heavier than an hour ago, though nothing's changed. Griffiths gives a single nod, flips the safety on his Webley off and on, like testing a door he knows is locked. Noor strips the wrapper from a chocolate bar, breaks it into 5 pieces, passes them round. A communion of sugar and courage. Before we move, the sergeant calls a minute's halt. We stand in loose semicircle, steam rising from our shoulders, rifles grounded barrel down. His voice is rough from dust and rum. "We've lost mates, aye. We'll lose more. But the wire has to sing or none of this." He gestures at the torn horizon, moves an inch. Sparks here keeps that song. We keep him breathing. Understood? He doesn't wait for assent. He can see it in our faces. Instead, he pulls his pocket watch, pops the lid, its glass cracked, and sets the hands forward 1 minute. 0 at 1600. Check bayonets, fill bottles, make peace in your heads. I kneel, fingers hooking the reel to my belt, testing the crank's resistance. The buzz set slips into its canvas pouch, Morse key peeking like a silver tongue. The weight settles across shoulders already haunted by fatigue, yet it feels familiar, almost welcome. Each assignment, each new stretch of cable is a thread soldering me to purpose, to something larger than fear. Last night, the line carried pain and rescue. Tonight, it will carry coordinates, perhaps victory, perhaps another roll call. Either way, it will carry, and so will I. Wind shifts, blows from the west, cool and pure, carrying the faintest hint of pine from smashed copse beyond Delville Wood. I draw it deep, let lungs taste something not wholly corrupted. Overhead, a lark spirals, its song a thin silver wire of another kind, threading sky to earth with notes too light to bear the weight of all we ask of it. Still, it sings, because that is what it was built for. I close my eyes an instant, storing the sound, then open them to the reality of rifles, mud, cables. The sergeant's whistle rests at his lips, silent yet. Around me, men settle straps, cinch helmets, tap pockets checking for letters to pass back if they do not return. I pat mine, still empty. Another promise deferred. "Stand by," the sergeant murmurs. I step onto the fire step, feel boards flex, hear the distant mutter of German guns adjusting somewhere behind their curtain of smoke. My heart finds their rhythm, not with dread now, but with a strange steadiness. Mason's laughter, Hook's grip on my arm, Johann's danke, they march beside me, ghosts woven into the fiber of the line I'm about to pay out. I tap my helmet brim, a private signal to memories. Stay close. Guide my steps. The whistle blasts, sharp, inevitable, and we rise. Boots slap duckboards, bayonets glint, cable spins free. Ahead, the parapet waits, chalk smeared with fresh sandbag patches. Beyond it lies the ground we fought over, ground that swallowed friends and enemies and may yet swallow us. But the morning has given me one fragile, stubborn gift, resolve stitched from loss. I climb, boots finding purchase, and for a breath, my silhouette stands against the misting afternoon sun. The wind carries a final echo of the lock. I wrap my fingers round the cable, lean forward into the open, and step over the top. One man, one wire, walking the thin line between ending and endurance. Determined that today, at least, the song will not break.